Hey, Anthony here from the Best in the West. Here's my drive to work. This is Laguna Beach. This is my drive up from PCH from Huntington Beach up to Monarch Bay. This is Monarch Bay. It's a gated private community. The houses on the left right there are Oceanside, and there's not a house on that side under 30 million. I'm working up here to the right. This is a private gated community. I'm going to be raising the floor one. It's kind of a strange job. It's 1 inch of the whole entire house. They're going to retile it. So I bid it a couple months ago. When I showed up, they were tearing the floor out. So I saw how it was done. They had like wire down, and it was like 1 inch thick, like a dry pack. They had like 8 concrete guys bid this, and a bunch of floor guys, and every guy said, "Oh, we're gonna dry pack it and mix it by hand and stuff like that." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm gonna pour it." In the video, I'll tell you what mix I use. I pumped it all. I have a bunch of like 12 finishers on this job. It's top and bottom. I like to hear how other people would bid this thing and how they would go about it. I used a different mix and a bunch of finishers because you're gonna dry pack. At first, I looked in the self-leveling cement, and don't quote me, but I swear it was like 40 grand just for the self-leveler, and then mixing it by hand. There's a view off the porch. Mixing it by hand, people were telling them it was going to take them 2 weeks, and I said I could do this thing in 2 days. So I set it all up. This is the setup here. I set it up with the paper for a moisture barrier, and then put this wire mesh stuff or whatever you call it down on the ground. It's the top of the house and the bottom of the house, so it's really tricky and kind of intricate the way we poured it. We'd come out of each room, and it was so tight, and then we'd get in a big living room, and we could knock that down faster, and then we had to drag the hose down, back out the front door, and go underneath in the bottom floor and pour all that, and that was super tight too. That's Nima, the guy standing there from City Tile and Cabinet, who hired me. He was working for the general on this. He's doing the tile. This tile floor is like over $200,000, they said. So I mean, this is a $15-20 million house. Only the ballers get up in these gated communities. You won't see other people posted on here in these areas. They don't even know where these areas are. They've never even heard of them. But we're going to lay this down, and we just used like a compressor and a stapler and just stapled it, bam, bam, like a roofer would. That's the paper there. When you pour this thing, you got to have a game plan and how to go about it. And it went slow too. I mean, eyeballing 1 inch when you pour inside. I've never poured at 1 inch. I'd like to know how other people would do it. Watching a lot of people on YouTube and stuff, the work's real subjective. I mean, a lot of areas doesn't call for like custom stuff, benches and stuff I do. And if you work for yourself, wherever you work and you're getting paid, you're a professional. It's different levels wherever you're at. You know, that's a conclusion I came to. It's just subjective to where you're from. So what we did was we brought a laser after we set it all up, and we snapped elevations around the perimeter, and you'll see how we pour. We come off about 3 feet around the whole perimeter, and then we just rod up the center once we got the height off the walls. And there's downstairs. We didn't run the hose down in that way. We pulled it back out around. We went down the driveway. So we were just concentrating on the top half of the house first. Normally, if I'm busy or I get calls like this, weird stuff like this all the time, where I'm like, nah, I ain't doing that. But I bid it a couple months ago, and I knew I'd do it in December, right around Christmas. And it just worked out beautiful. Timing-wise, financially, perfect, everything. That's a stapler we went and got, and we just stapled down the wire. I think they were 1 inch staples, I believe. But they had like 8 or 10 concrete guys look at this, and I showed up and I told them how I do it, and they'd say, well, really? Because 10 guys, different guys, nobody said to do it this way. And I said, well, you didn't call the Best in the West, so that's how I'm doing it. I'll do it in 2 days. And they said everyone else take it 2 weeks. So they called me a month later, a month and a half later, and said, come do it. So I lined it all up, and 3 days later I was there and knocked it out. Took us 2 days, 1 day to set it up and 1 day to pour it. We poured it all in one pour, which took like 4 hours to pour this thing. It was crazy. It was so hard to get all it, because you'd have to come out of these closets in these close rooms, and you're gonna see it when it's coming up. You gotta throw a Fresno on it as you're coming out, and I got guys scattered all over. So we'd pour the perimeter of one room, leave a couple guys fall back, 3 guys, and we had 3 guys in different areas all over the house. That's why I brought 12 finishers, because I didn't want to, look how tight this stuff is. And you're pumping it. It's not like you can sit there and dick around with it. I mean, you got to get out of each room because you're getting locked out, and we just keep pumping until we get to the door, the sliding doors we came in at. So we went left to right, pump to the big room, then the right, we pump to the big room. I mean, that's $1 million view there. There's my office. That's Salt Creek right around the corner. That's one of the sweetest breaks on the West Coast. There's a swimming pool. It's in front of the house, and you swim under the steps, and there's another pool, and then the jacuzzi. There's my friend Greg. I brought him to help me film. I filmed all this. Pretty sweet house. I mean, you gotta have power well to live up here. There's Nima from City Tile, and I had somebody else pump it. His name's Joe. He did a really good job because there's so much going on. I got to watch the clamps if they're scratching. I got to tell the finishers, the pumper, where we're pumping, how we're doing it. I got to keep an eye if it's splattering on the windows, whatever. So for me to pump this and save $500 or $600 or $700 doesn't make sense because I'm micromanaging this thing. Some people think that I run it a little iron-fisted, but I have it in my head before we've even poured it. I've already done it in my head exactly how we're going to go about it. Maybe they might not be on the same page for part of the pour, but they get halfway through what I'm saying. What we're using here is, I call it some heavy hitters, and I used an 80% sand, 20% rock with a mid-range water reducer and fibers in it. And pumped it stiff, probably about a 4.5. We started off at. We had to string out about 175 feet of hose. There's a slump we use. It's got a mid-range water reducer. We didn't want to deal with bleed water, and we're inside a house and splattering all over, so I didn't want a high range. I just wanted a mid-range. And there's nowhere to pump the prime out the water, so we just put it in a wheelbarrow and then ditched it after. We didn't have to wash out and get another truck. This thing calced out to 13 yards. I measured it tight, but one load got the whole thing, which is strange. That's Dan. That's the owner of the house. He's actually a doctor. And then we got 12 finishers, and I brought 2 laborers to drag the hose because I'm filming it and I'm watching everything. If there's any splatter, any scratching, because out front he's got that high-end tile and the clamps are on it and stuff. That's how tight it is, how we had to do this thing. But you call West Coast to do these sort of jobs and you pay and it's done right. I mean, it's like 40 G's in 2 days. I'll show you how we got the elevations. We snapped on the wall and then we just put 1x2s off like 10 feet or 12 feet, and we just rod off that, off the walls around the whole perimeter. That's how we got the height off there. Pretty simple. And we get about a 3-foot screed off the walls, off the walls, and then we just come sideways and put another 1x2 off of that, 12 feet out or 14 feet out, whatever that stick is they're using. It's probably a 12 or 14 footer. I just want to go hit the water. I just kept going out there looking at it. There's the owner right there. He's a really cool dude. But getting out of these back rooms is no easy task with all these guys. I mean, look how many guys. We got like 5-6 guys in each room. But we just kept trying to pump and pump and pump because we got to get downstairs too. So we got to do top and bottom of this house. But these are high profile jobs. People see up in these gated communities. My truck's out front. They know who I am. I mean, I'm going to go exclusively just high-end custom stuff and just bombard these videos coming up. I have some really custom stuff coming up this winter I'll be doing. But I'll do stuff like this too, and stuff that's oddball, and if they pay what I'm asking, I'm going to do them. And these guys didn't balk, so I mean, 8 or 10 guys look at it and scratch their head, and one guy walks in and says, I'll do it in 2 days. I mean, and you do it right in front of him, you're the man. That's just the way it is. Arrogant, whatever you want to call it. It's just a fact. And that's how we got to bull float it or Fresno it, either way, coming in and out. They're using a magnesium bull float on it. There's the best in the West right there. Running the show. I think I have like 14 or 15 guys here total. It's like a $6,000 or $7,000 labor day for me to pay out. And this thing's open, so I was super concerned about somebody falling down in there. So I was standing over there watching them, telling them, hey man, watch out. You're getting close to that edge. You're going to do a nosedive. And there's the pumper, Joe. He's really good. I was telling him how I want to do it, how we're going to come out each wall, and how we're going to end up out the front door. Our sliding windows is actually the front door. And that ledge over there, I mean, how else you going to do it? So we just pumped it with a ladder just to put it in there, and then a guy climbed up on the ladder and it floated it out. We skate this too, this whole top and bottom too. When we hit it once to make sure that it's pretty flat. But these guys are as good as you're going to see. You're not going to see anyone, YouTubers or people posting up on here that or this level of finishing. You can obviously tell, but different areas have different styles. But if you're looking at the best styles, the West Coast it's head above. Look at the custom stuff when you're in a $20 million, $30 million house. They're not putting garbage concrete down, you know. It's just the way it is. And we try not to splash on the walls. I didn't put any plastic up or anything like that because it just seems to fall down on you. You got to lift it up. And I wanted the elevations perfect because they're going to redo all the drywall and paint in this house. And there's a board down there on the bottom. So we were going 1.25 inches under that, I believe, 1 1/8 inches. So we could get the elevations good. But those 1x2s you just set down 12 feet apart and you're at 1 inch. Basically what you want. But it'd get tight in these back rooms, so I just come out here in the this is the main room when you walk into the house. But that mix I used, I still think they put too much rock in it. It was super rocky. It was supposed to be 20% rock, but I don't know. There's almost too much in it. We don't want to tamp this crap. And pumping it too, I mean, by pumping for 20, 25 years, this guy said he's been pumping for 8 years. How do you eyeball 1 inch? So it would stack up on us, and we'd have to have 2-3 guys shoveling it back here and there. But it was, it's dry and pumping at 1 inch. You're not gonna lay it down like butter, you know. There's gonna be a lot of work. I'm just telling him how I want to square it up and then come sideways with the house. I would pump this thing normally, but there's just too much going on, too many people. It's too high profile. The owner's there. There's a superintendent there named Malcolm. He was cool and knowledgeable too. I'll probably be working with these guys a lot now that they met me. They were looking for a concrete guy, and they found the highest level. And then we just had a sprayer, like a little bit. We would mist it if it splashed up and just wipe it off real quick as we went. Here's the main entry room. Once we get out here, I was not as stressed out because in those tight rooms I was looking at it, and I can't get back in there and check the elevations. They're doing it. So Javier's there running part of them, and Milton's, you know, my two main guys are running the finishers and stuff. And I would just periodically go up to Javier or Milton and ask him, hey man, let's pump this room, and or the elevation's good. I kept asking him, and if Javier says yeah, I assume he knows. So I'm like, okay, cool. Because they're going to thin set on top of this and tile it. Pretty sweet house next door. The guy next door was some kind of movie director. I don't remember who he was. He was somebody big shot. But you want to get the perimeters first with the 1x2s off about 3 feet of the house. But I'll do stuff like this. We're going to see what kind of calls I get and what I look at. But the sky's the limit in these areas. Money's not an issue. And you don't want to dry pack this or whatever with bags and mix it with bags. I mean, for 2 weeks, you got to be kidding me. You just got to get the right mix down, what you're using. You don't want to use a regular mix, and you want to use a mid-range water reducer in it so you can get the slump in the way you want it without dumping tons of water in it where it's going to just bleed to the top and you got water just sitting there. This went off perfectly. They skated it once. We were out of there. I think we were done at 2. We started at 8. So 6 hours on this thing. But I'm going to start putting up just launching stuff on YouTube, and I just started a TikTok. And I do a lot of consulting, so if you want to learn how to pump, call me. Run a demo business, equipment. You can come out with me on my equipment. I'll show you how to run it. You want to learn how to run a concrete company, I'll show you how to run it, how to bid stuff. I don't bid it like these other people you see on here. I bid it for what it's supposed to be. Don't ever go cheaper and lower yourself. Even though it slows down, I mean, I get calls like this normally that I won't go to, but it's slow and it's Christmas time, so it's hard to gauge whether it's because of the economy or because it's Christmas. So this timing was perfect. In the area, you got to be real clean out front. You got to put a tarp. I mean, it's a different caliber of neighborhood and people. You can look it up. It's Monarch Bay. I guess it's Dana Point. It's the end of South Laguna. I always thought it was Laguna Beach, but it's Dana Point. Monarch Bay. And this is how we hit it. Just hit it down like I was saying. Hit the perimeter and then start doing that. If you start your own business and you take stuff like this, you just got to bring enough people, even more people than you need. I probably had, I don't know, 2-3 more finishers than I needed, but I'd rather have more than be undergunned. I'm never undermanned, never. I don't operate like that. If the money's not in it to overman it, the job's not for me. So always keep that in mind if you guys are new or starting out, or you're working for companies and undermanned and they're just killing you guys. I would look to go somewhere else. There's only a certain amount of work each man should do, and I can gauge it perfectly. We started off initially, Javier and I thought 9 finishers. Then we went to 10, and I told him just bring 12. He calls them up and orders whatever I need, however many. There he is right there, how many guys I need. And we talk about how we're going to go about it. This isn't that hard of a job, really. It's just, it was hard, but it's not in theory. But when you get down and try and do it, it was a pain. It took a long time to lay it down. And you got to drag the hose out. And then right where Joe the pumper is, there's stairs. So when you're dragging the hose out, you got to pull it back out into the street too. You can't really wind it up out in front, so we're constantly moving the hose. Not an ideal pump job for a pump guy. I wouldn't want to roll up on this. And plus it's 1 inch, so it makes it kind of difficult to lay down. You're moving the stuff 2 or 3 times. It's like these guys with these Georgia buggies and rakes. You got to keep moving it. And shovel guys, this way you can't really, at 4 inches you can just keep kick screening and going while the guy's pumping. On this you got to stop, get to elevation. There's piled up on you, which is inevitable. It's going to pile up on you. But the experience I have, I've done caisson houses in Laguna off the cliff. I've worked on everything basically. I know how to do anything in concrete, tilt ups, whatever. Read the plans of anything you got. But you see how we gotta pull the finishers off plus the laborers, because you're just yanking this hose out and it gets all kinked up and snaked up on you. So you want to have it all looped outside nice, so you can pick it up and move right down the driveway into the bottom floor. But that's how we ended up doing this thing. Now we finished the top floor, thank God. Now we're going to go downstairs where the bottom floor is. It's only about 950 square feet down below. Up top was like 3,500 or something. Kind of weird, the pool's out in front of the house. So you gotta have like 5-6 guys drag this stuff down there. And then you gotta be really careful. You can't spill on the driveway, you can't make a mess. And then walking down in there's like a it's a custom garage and sort of the steps, and there's concrete getting all over it, so you got to constantly clean it up and keep grooming the place as you're going, not when you're done and then go over it. I think we got 5 or 6 guys pulling this stuff down. But doing jobs like this is worth it if you price it right. And we don't want to scratch the driveway, so we just put cardboard under it. I have those pumper caddies, but we were just sliding it back as we're going, so it wasn't that big a deal. Here's the downstairs. It's pretty tight. It's much tighter here than upstairs. Here's the stairs. I'll get up, give you a good shot of what it looks like after we laid it down. We leave a couple finishers back and bring 4 or 5 downstairs. Leave guys up here troweling this because they got to crawl all the way back into the back rooms. This is kind of a specialty thing. I'd like to know how you guys would do it, how you would bid it, how would you go about doing it? Because they kept saying dry pack, and I went there a few months ago and I saw how they demoed it. I saw the wire and the it looked like it was mixed by bags. I guess evidently that's how they normally do it. But this is how you got to rot it down. And you're going to have a few shovel guys moving this stuff. I mean, we're moving this stuff constantly. Imagine using a Georgia buggy on this up the stairs. Bunch of rakers. So it sets West Coast apart from anybody you'll see on YouTube. When you just watch the videos, look at the bench, look at the stairs, look at everything I've done, and look how, when people make it look that easy, they've done it a lot. And nobody's sweating, nobody's killing themselves, nobody's running around. You can just watch my videos and you can see. And I'm going to be putting a lot of shorts up too, so if you like long form, you can watch the long form. I'll start putting up 1 or 2 a week, and then if you like shorts, you can check out the shorts. I'll try and diversify and show equipment, pumping, stamping, everything. Different ways of doing, different jobs. I want to be able to pick the different interesting stuff, you know. I wasn't going to post this. I wasn't sure. I'm like, oh man, it's not that. But it was kind of interesting because I wanted to hear from people all over the world or different countries of how they would go about doing this, you know. Or maybe this is a new way they would do it now. You know, with that mix, it worked. It didn't crack up. It worked really good. Initially, I thought I'll use an 8 or 10 sack sand slurry when I first looked at it. And I talked to some of the guys that own concrete plants, and they said, no, I use an 80% sand, 20% rock. And I was like, oh, okay. With a mid-range water reducer. And they're like, yeah, and fiber. But I was going to use a sand slurry on it originally. First, I was going to use a self-leveler, but that price of that stuff, I was like, whoa. And I don't know anything about mixing by hand. Pretty nice office, huh? Work up and down the beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Corona Del Mar, Laguna Beach. So from my house, I just go right up PCH is a few blocks from my house, and Pacific Coast Highway hits all these beaches. I don't even go on the freeway. Here's Huntington Beach. I'm home. I don't feel right till I'm back in Huntington. There's my home right here. That's my cruise home. Thank you very much for watching The Best in the West. I hope everyone has a nice Christmas and a Happy New Year. Have a good one.